a huge bush of bitter melon. It's actually growing everywhere, and I'm really excited today. I set out time to come and harvest a bunch. I have my Trader Joe's bag, which is my favorite harvest accessory because you just want to have like a paper bag when you're harvesting herbs. And then inside, a pair of scissors, and that's it. I'm gonna give you all the details about this amazing plant soon, but until then, here is a few clips of me harvesting. Welcome to my apothecary. So I am back. I actually foraged this entire bag of bitter melon yesterday, and I've stored it in the fridge overnight to like maintain the integrity of the plant. And now we are going to sort through it. I'm going to make sure that there's no mysterious plants in here. We're going to just, what it's called is garbling. We're going through the plant material and sorting it. I'm gonna clean it, and we're gonna make a bunch of medicine. So let's pour this out. Oh my gosh. Look at all this plant goodness. I'm so excited. I love making medicine, and I absolutely love this plant. So let's talk about what even this is. So this plant is called Momordica carantia, also known as bitter melon. And it grows in tropical and subtropical climates. So it grows amazingly and abundantly here in Florida. It grows literally in my backyard, guys, but I harvested this in the wild. And yeah, it's just like such an abundant vine. As you can see, it's pretty viney. It grows these little melons, and that's why it's called bitter melon. It grows like these little gourds, and the gourds can be eaten. And they are eaten in a lot of cultures. In Trinidad, we eat bitter melon, and they actually grow bigger. There's a few different varieties, but this variety actually grows these pretty tiny little cute gourds, and they can be eaten whole. They're extremely bitter, but you can eat these whole, and it has very similar benefits here's another one. Oh, how pretty. I love them. They actually turn orange, and you can eat the seeds inside. They're red, they're sweet, they're delicious. But it's better to be eaten, it's more medicinal when it's eaten green. And oftentimes when you go to like Asian markets, you will find bitter melon in its green, long gourd. And you can chop that up. A lot of people saute it. In a lot of different cultures, bitter melon is consumed. And one of the top benefits that it has is it helps to regulate blood sugar. And so when it comes to diabetes, type 2, pre-diabetes, especially if you are on that spectrum of pre-diabetes, you're gonna wanna start to introduce bitter melon into your diet. So what bitter melon does is it acts on the hormones within our body that produces high blood sugar. And so that hormone is actually called glucagon. And it reduces glucagon, because when you have glucagon in your blood, it increases blood sugar. So bitter melon decreases glucagon in the blood, therefore reducing blood sugar. And that is absolutely what you want, especially if you are on the spectrum, you're almost about to be diabetic. You want to get on something like bitter melon. There are so many herbs that are really great, but there is a lot of studies on bitter melon. And I'm going to dive into a few clinical trials. So one of the clinical trials that I want to talk about when it comes to bitter melon's activity on the blood sugar is a clinical trial that was performed on folks that had prediabetes. It was a 12-week study, and everyone was given doses of bitter melon extract after eating, which is typically when you will see an increase in your blood sugar. And it actually showed that bitter melon decreases the glucagon in your blood. It showed a significant decrease in blood sugar levels when you take bitter melon after you eat. So that is significant, especially if you're consuming lots of sugars. if you are consuming a lot of starches, carbs, all of that, alcohol, all of that converts into glucose in the body. They just convert into different forms of glucose. And so it's really important, if you are on the spectrum of being diabetic, that you reduce your carb intake and you pay attention to what you're eating. I always start, when it comes to diabetes particularly, it starts with the diet. So I'm not going to give you a one quick fix. I'm going to go into your diet and make sure that everything dietary wise is that you're doing your part. If you're consuming tons of sugar and then you're like, I'm just going to have some bitter melon, it'll help, but it's not going to eradicate. And what we want to do is eradicate these illnesses that stem up in the body, so that they never come back. So when diabetes is actually left untreated, it can lead to a lot of inflammatory ailments in the body. That's why when people have diabetes, they also have an onset of a lot of other things, because diabetes left untreated leads to oxidative stress, which then leads to the immune system pretty much recognizing in the body that there is something that is out of whack, and it creates inflammation as a result, because that's kind of what the immune system is set to do. We have so many, cells in the body that are trying to get us into a healthier state. But when we're not paying attention to what we put in our bodies, everything just kind of goes out of whack. And that's why diabetes is so detrimental to a lot of people, because it can then lead to a lot of cardiovascular ailments. It can lead to liver issues. You name it, it leads to a lot of inflammatory ailments. And so there are actually a lot of studies on bitter melon's ability to reduce inflammation due to the key inflammatory markers. If we're getting microbiology, we're talking TNF alpha, I believe it's IL-16, and these are all contributing to inflammation in the body. So taking bitter melon actually helps to reduce inflammation, and therefore helping with any joint issues, any other ailments that can come up with inflammation, like literally anything. Cancer is related to inflammation. Most diseases in the body are inflammation induced. And so we want to always keep our inflammation low and take things that helps our bodies to stay at equilibrium and not have an over excess of inflammation. So along with the benefits for diabetes, bitter melon is really great for helping with the liver, helping the liver clear stagnation, especially because it is bitter. So most of people, like in America at least, we stay away from things that are bitter. But in the Eastern world, places like China, even the Caribbean, like a bitter diet and constantly cleansing parasites in the body using bitter herbs is a normal practice, okay? My mom is Trinidadian, and growing up, she always was forced, she told me when she was young, to take senna leaves. And I actually have some senna in here. Maybe I'll do a video on senna, because wow, what a powerful anti-parasitic herb. Maybe a bit too powerful at times to give to a child, but back in the day, like that's what you would do. And the fact that my mom had to take these, anti-parasitic herbs at a young age, her body was like healthy. She wasn't getting as sick. It really helps maintain the health of our body and making sure that our cells are functioning at their optimal level. And just absorbing nutrients. Everything is so deeply intertwined. And so staying away from bitter herbs as Americans and bitter foods has obviously led to extreme detriment. And so what bitter herbs really do on a scientific level is when you taste bitter herbs on your tongue, it sends signals to your stomach that we got to start creating more stomach juices so that we can digest. It literally tells your body it's time to digest. So this helps with obviously digestion, helping to clear any stagnation in the body. It helps with bile production, which is a function of the liver, detoxing. All of that is intertwined with, digestion overall. And obviously, it's great for the immune system as well because it acts on the lymphatic system, which is a function of the immune system, and it's flowing all throughout our bodies. And so these are all some serious, benefits to taking bitter herbs. So, if it's not bitter melon, there's a wide variety of bitter herbs that I recommend you take. One of them being, I don't know where it is. It's there or in my other apothecary, but one of the bitter herbs that are also really great to take is wormwood. Wormwood, I grow it in my backyard, and it's a great herb. It's in the mugwort and motherwort family, so it is one of those plants. It's seriously bitter. It's in my Parasite Cleanse because it helps to eradicate parasites. And that is another function of bitter melon. Any plant that is bitter typically helps to eradicate parasites. And so I always recommend as an herbalist that we all do cleanses, parasite cleanses, or any sort of body reset 4 times a year. And that is in alignment with the seasons. When a season changes, I recommend you hop on a 3-day, 7-day ideally cleanse. You give your body a reset, permission to not digest anything for some time, which then allows all of your cells to regenerate faster. Because when you're fasting, it gives your body, your cells, permission to regenerate and the time to do so. That's why a lot of people say don't eat at night, because your body needs a moment to reset, and your cells need a moment to regenerate for the next day. So yes, fasting is absolutely vital for the autophagy process, which is essentially where our cells renew and clean up. And that process starts with in the 12 to 16 hour fasting mark. The reason why that's so important is because when we have food in our body and our body is digesting food, the autophagy process doesn't actually begin, right? And so we have to give our bodies breaks from eating so that those cells the cells that have died in the body can get cleaned out, can be renewed, can be refreshed, and we can have optimal cells, because cellular health is literally the base of every single process in our entire body. And I'm studying microbiology right now, and I'm in an immunology course, and it is completely blowing my mind just how much the immune system does for us and works to make us better, and how much we as human beings do the complete opposite in our diets. And I'm super passionate about diet. As an herbalist, that is the number one thing I lead with. I don't lead with herbs. I know a lot of people come to me saying, I have so-and-so, I need help. And my number one thing I let them know is, let's get into your diet. Let's talk about what you're eating. Let's break down your lifestyle choices. What time do you go to sleep at night? Because sleep is vital for the functioning of our bodies, and all of it is intertwined. And that's why herbalism is holistic medicine. We are not treating one part of a human being. We are treating all parts. And I'm just excited to, be able to help people and study biology, microbiology, all the functions of the human body, and apply it to my practice. It is truly I love science. I'm a science nerd. So anyway, those are a few of the benefits of this amazing plant. To dive into a few more, because it's great for inflammation on the body, it's also great for skin health, eczema, which is also a function of inflammation, and it starts in the gut. So this is a great plant that helps with just reducing any rashes that are induced by inflammation. And our skin is our largest organ, so whatever you change in your gut will absolutely reflect in your skin. Whenever you hop on a cleanse, you will notice that your skin is definitely going through a purge, but eventually it will balance itself out and come back into a state of calm. So this herb right here helps to cool inflammation of all sorts, on all levels. Additionally, I think finally, because of bitter melon's effects on inflammation in the body. There has been a few studies that have shown it to really help with reducing cancer cells in the body, and that is likely due to its impact on inflammation and its ability to kind of create an uncomfortable environment for cancer cells to thrive, because cancer is a function of inflammation. Again, everything is inflammation related in the body. At least diseases are inflammation related. So because bitter melon reduces inflammation, it helps to make an uncomfortable environment for cancer cells to thrive. And so this can have, an impact on reducing cancer cells, reducing tumor growth. And so you definitely want to get into this plant. We are going to talk a bit more on the plant in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and clean this and get everything kind of sorted and prepared to make a tincture. All right, we are back. Our bitter melon is cleaned and everything is ready to go. So we're gonna make a tincture to start with. Typically, bitter melon is consumed as a decoction. So in the Caribbean, if you were to have some bitter melon, also known as cerasee, also known as koraili, in Trinidad, you would just take some of the leaves, put them on the stove, boil them, which is a decoction, and then you would drink it as a tea. That way is really, really great. It's bioavailable. It is easy to consume for most folks. And it is, great for stimulating digestion because you're tasting all of the bitterness. So we're gonna make it as a tea as well. But I like making tinctures for a lot of my medicine. I think bitter melon as an extract, as a tinctured compound is great, because what happens with bitter melon is you can then extract all of the wide variety of constituents. So we're also considering the fat soluble compounds, any alcohol soluble compounds. You're not gonna be able to get that when you make a tea. And so tinctures are also super bioavailable. They immediately work into the bloodstream, and they're also just great for long-term use. So if you're gonna be taking bitter melon for a chronic ailment, cancers, long-term for treating diabetes, lowering blood sugar, you want something that is quick and easy for most people. That is a tincture. You can just drop it straight into your mouth, drop it into some water and go. Whereas if you're creating a tea and you have to sit and drink an entire cup of tea and make that every day, maybe multiple times a day, most people are less likely to do that. So the way that I like to make herbal medicine is to make it available to most people. Accessibility is one of the core foundations of my practice, moss medicine, because I know that most people are just transitioning out of pharmaceutical medicine. And so we want to make herbalism as accessible to people as possible so that it is digestible and that they're more likely to try an alternative way. Although herbalism is an alternative, it is the original medicine. We all know this. So anyway, to make a tincture, I'm going to take a large chunk of this and we're gonna just chop it up into smaller material. I typically would pop it into a blender with some water and some alcohol, but I don't have my blender anymore. It is RIP. And so we are gonna just go ahead and cut it up into small pieces. The reason we wanna cut plant material into small pieces instead of just stuffing it into a jar is because we're completely opening the cell wall of the plant so that we can get in there with the alcohol. The alcohol and the water can penetrate and extract the water soluble and the alcohol soluble parts. And so along with cutting the plant material, we have our alcohol here. I use organic cane alcohol, which is 190 proof. The reason I do this is because I like to dilute my alcohol based off of whatever I'm making. And so for this, I think like 45% proof, 40% to 50% is sufficient for a leaf. But if we're, extracting, let's say a root, a seed, we're gonna try to go a little bit higher. So this gives me that freedom and I use this for my business. If you want to try organic cane alcohol from Diamond Clear, I do have a discount code on the bottom. It's code MOSS10. You get $10 off. It's up to you. And to dilute this, we're going to use some distilled water. I also have a scale here. This is the scale that I use for my business, and it's just a typical scale. It allows me to measure the plant material, therefore measure how much alcohol and water I need. I'm not gonna get into the details of tincture making in this video because it is quite extensive. We're gonna just chop up our plant material here. Just trying to think of how best to do this. Yeah, we're just gonna go in. Just giving it a nice good chop. The smaller the pieces, the better, which is why I typically like to blend my tinctures and, you know, create a larger surface area so that it is more potent. So yeah, with this medicine, I'm going to create a 1 gallon tincture, and I'm going to make it available for sale for a limited time in my shop. I say a limited time because when it comes to bitter melon, they're not in season for a long time. So, you know, it depends on how much I can forage. This isn't typically, you're not going to find this herb in most shops. It's not a typical herb because it only grows in tropical and subtropical climates. And it honestly doesn't really dry down well. It dries down to like, you know, powder pretty much. And so because the leaves are so tiny and so thin. And so, yeah, it's better fresh, obviously, and it's better if it's tinctured immediately while it's fresh. So I'm gonna just finish chopping this up, and I will be back when we are ready to make the tincture. Right, so that was a lot of work. I was able to chop down a 1 gallon jar of our bitter melon here, and the rest of the herbs I'm going to make into a tea for demonstration, and then whatever's left over, I'm gonna save it and use it in the future. I'm gonna dry it and maybe make teas with it, maybe even experiment with some other medicine forms, we'll see. But let's get into the tincture making here. And the best way to do this is to just tear off the weight of the exact same jar so that it is not influencing the weight of our herbs here. And we have about 516 grams of bitter melon. Because the bitter melon is fresh, I'm going to do a 1:2 ratio. So essentially, I'm just going to try to get about 1,000, it'll probably go over, it'll probably be more of a 1:3 ratio because of it's a 1 gallon jug, but I'm just measuring it out, knowing that I need to get about 600 to 800 grams of alcohol. And then we're gonna pretty much do the exact split off of that, considering that I want to do a 50 proof alcohol. Go ahead and top it off a little bit. We have our tincture here. Just gonna cover it with parchment paper. I get this question all the time, why do you do this? This is to prevent corroding on our lid, and it just keeps everything clean and pure and free of any contaminants. So let's give it a good shake. And there we have our bitter melon tincture. I'm gonna label this right now to make sure that I know exactly when it's going to be ready. So yeah, I'm gonna have this available in the shop in 6 weeks. And the best way to consume this medicine is either before or after you consume food. If you're having something that is known to spike your blood sugar, you can absolutely take a dose orally. I would say 2 dropperfuls of bitter melon orally will help to have a decrease in your blood sugar. The consensus in a lot of the clinical trials that I was reading is you actually take it after you consume food. However, I believe you can also take it before to help mitigate the potential blood sugar spikes that you would see if you know you're having something that is known to raise your blood sugar, like something sweet, something carby, things of that nature. You can take it before. Now, when it comes to contraindications, I really just want to highlight these so that I'm not leaving that out because it's really important. Bitter melon is contraindicated for women who are pregnant. It has emmenagogue effects on the body. And so there is also, some history where it's been used for contraceptive use. So those are things to keep in mind. If you are nursing, pregnant, or trying to conceive, I would recommend staying away from bitter melon. It has a stimulating effect on the uterus. So just keep that in mind. You want to avoid it when you're pregnant. And also because it has the ability to lower your blood sugar tremendously, I highly recommend to be careful if you already have low blood sugar. And if you tend to run low on blood sugar, you're going to want to avoid bitter melon. It can have some impacts on the liver as well because it has that, stimulating effect on the liver. It helps with bile production and all of that. So if you already have some potential liver things that you're dealing with, I would say to stay away from bitter melon. But other than that, you should be mostly safe to use bitter melon for most folks. It's always recommended that you do your own research and you speak with your doctor prior to taking herbal medicine. But bitter melon has a lot of clinical trials that I highly recommend you guys go check out. Okay, now with the remainder of our bitter melon, just a fraction of it, I'm going to make a tea blend. And this pot is from IKEA. Everyone always asks me, so I'm just gonna let you know now. From IKEA, and I've had this for years. I've gone through a few of them, but it's one of my favorites because it holds so much tea and you can drink this throughout the day. So if you're making a blend like this, I recommend making a big batch, letting it sit, and you can strain it and drink it throughout the day. If you're making a big batch of tea like this, I would say you can keep it in the fridge for 2 days to 3 days. Outside of that, just scrap it and start from scratch because it's a breeding ground for bacteria. You don't have to chop it up as fine as you would for a tincture. So we're just doing a nice rough chop. I think this is more than enough plant material for a teapot of this size. I'm just gonna go ahead and place all of this inside. Yeah, this is more than enough for a teapot this size. It's gonna be super bitter, but that's pretty much it. I'm personally gonna take out the filter. I don't think it's necessary. I will just strain it on my own. And let's go get some water. So this water is just about to boil. It's not quite boiled yet, but however, it doesn't really matter because we are going to put this on the stove and let it come to a light simmer. But I always like to kind of introduce the herbs in like a gentle way. Sorry, the water to the herbs in a gentle way, so as not to shock them, but honestly, it's not gonna really make much of a difference. It's so pretty. How gorgeous is this? Now, I just wanna make it clear that this pot is not intended to go on a stove, but it works if your water is already hot. It kind of works really well on the stove. So I'm gonna go pop this on the stove for like 10 minutes and allow it to come into a slight simmer, aka a decoction. Okay, so our tea here is ready. I allowed it to simmer for 15 minutes and then I let it sit for like 10 minutes. So I just know it's gonna be potent. You won't see much of a color change on this herb, but you will taste it, that is for sure. Kind of turns into this yellowish tea, and I'm gonna do a quick taste test. I'm a little nervous. I'm so familiar with this plant and the taste that like I kind of like it now, but it is like pretty intense for folks who've never had a bitter herb before. I recommend letting the tea cool down just a little bit so that it is not burning your mouth, and it's easier to consume when it's kind of at room temperature. You can just like gulp it down, which is ideal. You know, you want to consume the whole cup of tea. So room temperature is easier. I'm going to drink this out in the next day, but I'm really excited because, you know, although it's bitter, I know it's going to be helping my body. And I think that's what we all need to get back into the knowledge of. You know, not everything has to be pleasureful. Not every activity has to be sweet. It is important for us to have bitter things, to do hard things, to have discipline. It's all encompassing in order to have an outcome. You know, if you go to the gym and you lift weights, resistance, it's hard, but you produce muscles from that. So I think you can apply that same concept to this plant and to consuming bitter herbs, because you know that your body is getting, you know, to a better space when you consume bitter herbs. So yeah, I just kind of like to introduce little mindset shifts when you take herbal medicine, because you know that you are actually helping yourself. So all in all, I hope this was helpful for you guys. I hope you guys are motivated to try bitter melon. If you really want to try it, I will have this tincture available, like I said, in about 6 weeks. If this is speaking to you, if this is something that you're interested in, I will leave a link down below for our mailing list. You can just pop your email, your name, and you will get an email as soon as this is available. I probably will use the rest of these herbs and maybe go forage a little bit more to make maybe 1 or 2 more batches so that I have a good amount for you guys. I know these are going to sell out relatively quickly, and then soon the bitter melon won't be available because nature evolves, it shifts, things die off. And so I want to just be able to have a good amount of this for my friends, my family, and you guys. But also, you know, if you do live in the tropics, go ahead and make this medicine. It's literally grows everywhere in Florida. It grows everywhere in the Caribbean. You will find this everywhere. It is a vine. It grows in abundance. But yeah, go ahead and shoot below if you've used this plant in your culture. I would love to know how you guys utilize it, maybe some ways that I haven't mentioned. And if you've ever taken bitter melon, let me know what you think about it, what you think about the taste. Some people say it's not that bad, but I personally think it's pretty bitter. And also, if you have any recipes for the actual melon, the bitter gourd that grows, I personally would love some of your personal recipes, because that's something that I plan to introduce into my diet more and more. And so yeah, if you want to see more content like this, more herbalism content, foraging, all things returning to the original medicine, go ahead and subscribe, like this video, and I will see you guys next time.